Russian soldiers from the private military company of Wagner are building their defense line in the occupied part of the Luhansk region in order to deter any quick counteroffensives of the armed forces of Ukraine. The photos show an area of recently constructed anti-tank fortifications and trench systems southeast of Kremenaya in the Luhansk region. If the plans are as big as Prigozhin claims, then the work will most likely be aimed at integrating the Seversky Donets River into the defense zone. The owner of the Wagner private military company, Yevgeny Prigozhin, announced that his team of engineers is building a large Wagner line, a line of defense in the occupied Luhansk region, and published a map showing the planned scale of the project. Fighting dragged on for the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut this weekend, as troops on both sides of the conflict returned to trench warfare in the prolonged struggle for the Donbas city. The Russian push for the nearly vacant city has drawn on for months, even as Kremlin forces have pulled back from the rest of the fighting. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky acknowledged the heavy fighting in the area this weekend, and each side claiming to have inflicted heavy casualties on the other. Photos from the region showed soldiers on both sides dug into trenches in the mud in what was fast becoming a brutal battle of attrition. In the trenches, fields, and streets around the Ukrainian city of Bakhmut, Ukrainian tanks are delivering brutal strikes on Russian troops, but not in direct face-to-face combat. Instead, the old T-64 tanks are being used as indirect artillery, with targeting handled by drones or combat helicopters. Some of the tank crews are utilizing their armor to bolster Ukrainian artillery. It's a combined arms tactic that is netting successful strikes, even as both sides fail to break through the other's lines. If Russians try to target the tanks, they move to a different position and resume barrages. The fighting around Bakhmut, located in the Ukraine's eastern Donbas in the breakaway Donetsk region, has descended into World War I-style trench warfare, enhanced with modern touches such as weaponized drones and satellite imaging. Fighting escalated in late summer, but in the last 3 months, ground to a dug-in stalemate with heavy artillery barrages destroying the area around Bakhmut. The city remains in Ukrainian hands, but it has been one of the few places Russian forces have pushed an offensive after Ukraine launched counteroffensives in the country's east and south. As a result of the trenches set up, both sides are relatively close to one another, allowing the tank strikes to hit with heavy accuracy. It's not a new move. Tanks have been used as indirect artillery throughout the war in Ukraine, particularly early on as Ukraine was outmatched militarily by Russia during the Iran-Iraq War of the 1980s, which saw widespread trench warfare and failed offensives. Saddam Hussein's forces dug in their tanks, turning them into pillboxes, rather than as the mobile artillery Ukrainians are fielding. The General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces said Monday it had repelled another Russian attack on Bakhmut. The battle lines have scarcely moved on over the past several months. Ukraine's Air Assault Command said Monday it had deployed its 71st Separate Hunting Brigade to the outskirts of Bakhmut. Bakhmut, some 30 miles southwest of Severodonetsk, had a peacetime population of 70,000 and no major industrial or obvious strategic importance. The city has instead become a symbolic prize for Russian forces, most notably the paramilitary fighters of the Wagner Group, a brutal quasi-state force funded by oligarch and Putin ally Yevgeny Prigozhin. Prigozhin, who has long denied involvement in the Wagner Group, has recently begun promoting his involvement with the organization, as well as involving himself in Russian politics. Throughout the war, Ukraine has been outmatched in the amount of tanks it has. However, a supply of anti-tank missiles have helped its forces destroy hundreds of newer Russian tanks. Some that haven't been fully destroyed were repaired and put into Kiev's service. Meanwhile, the overall artillery war, with more conventional pieces, is burning through ammunition at a rate not seen since the Korean War. The barrages are so heavy and constant that many of the howitzers and other guns are being damaged from overuse. Roughly a third are off of the field for repairs at any given time. Regardless, the return to the trench warfare amid heavy shelling is reminiscent of the fighting in the eastern Donbas region that began with Russia's 2014 incursion into Ukraine, where Wagner made its name.